Welcome to Bloom in Full Color, where we live life in high definition. I'm never going to get that consistent, so we're just going to mix it up. I'll have a new intro every time.
Which camera are we looking at?
Yes.
I haven't got the light on there to see which camera I should be directing
Production moment.
Go back to the blocking notes, please.
All right, welcome to Bloom in Full Color. I'm Jennifer. I've got Dave and PJ with me. All right, so we have had a subscriber, a customer, a request for topic, i.e. Dave's brother.
Yeah.
So
hi, Craig.
Hi, Greg. All right, so we are doing a custom podcast, but it is super relevant. So it's exactly the right time to talk about it.
Totally is.
So we're talking about fruit. How do you set up your berries and fruit trees for success?
Great question. It's spoken from. So when I moved back to town, I had a 33,000 square foot of grass. And when I came home, I planted a food forest instead of all that turf. So I put in brand new 18 different fruit and nut trees on a big section of grass.
Wow.
18 different trees, not counting all the berry plants and the comfreys and that kind of stuff. And I immediately went to slaughtering them on the proper pruning, and now am paying the price every single year. Yes. So it's just a perfect topic.
I think you've got that. And I think, and maybe the gardeners also saw that in our viewer world here. This was a challenging year.
Oh, no,
not, with the late spring.
2 in a row, kind of.
Okay. And then the very warm weather that we had later in the season. So I had a berry plant die. I had a tree die this year, so a fruit tree.
I had some real scrappy raspberries until all of a sudden I was like, oh crap, I got raspberries.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I've got a peach tree that is starting to turn into a peacock feather.
Yeah.
And it looks like an umbrella tree all of a sudden.
I have one of those.
No,
crap. We'll talk about it because that's all pruning.
So those are all. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. The pruning has got to be the key.
Let's talk about timing of trimming a fruit tree. Here's
hold on.
The Idaho rule.
Go ahead.
Any month that ends in R
is what?
October, November, December, September. That is when you trim fruit trees. Okay. Now, obviously, you got fruit on your trees right now. Don't trim them.
Right.
And if you didn't get to it in the fall, you do it in the spring before they're even starting to come out of dormancy.
Before the new branch.
Well, and actually,
you have to stop, but you have to catch them before.
And my recommendation is, in fact, you do not hard prune this time of year because basically you're opening your tree up to cuts that can freeze in the winter. So I typically do a little bit lighter pruning in the fall, and you can always prune all season. I tend to prune all season when the branches hit me in the head when I'm on the mower. So I'll go out there and whack them off. But also like crossing branches, the water sprouts, which are the ones that grow straight up, right? Those are not helpful for your tree. Right. Anything that's crossing or rubbing on other branches. So throughout the season, you're able to make small cuts and do things. The hardcore, we're shaping this tree for the future, in my experience here, happens in February. About the time we're warming up, we're past all the uber cold. You can go out there and really hatchet the trees and nothing's going to die. It'll come back in the spring.
Correct.
I'm hesitant to do that in November, December, because now you're opening those big branch wounds up to like the January freezes. So I'm a little hesitant to go making full scale hacks.
I have a ghost mic. We were just talking about Halloween. Maybe there is ghosts in this building. We'll have a small history lesson. We are having a podcast in the front living room of my great grandparents' living room, and I live in there.
Great, right?
No, just great. Just great.
Isn't that your grandma in that house?
That's my grandma. So this
wasn't her mom in this house?
Yeah.
So great.
No,
it's great.
Great. Because that's my grandma.
Grandma. You're right.
Yeah, great-grandma.
Great.
And Ed and Ruth, my great-grandparents, will mess with us sometimes. So I just kind of got to watch. It's fine. Yeah. So, I think if you're doing big cuts, as long as the tree is dormant and there's not a lot of moisture and there's not in our area, you're usually okay.
All right. So let's address the elephant in the room, for me, at least in this category, is that I've got fruit trees.
Right.
Okay. If you're making these cuts in the late winter, early spring, when are you applying all of the ointments and the insecticides? Because I had worms in my cherries.
Oh, yes.
I've got worms in my apples. I've got,
So the hard answer for that is it's specific to the fruit. If, for instance, apples and peaches got to spray a minimum 3 times if you're going to spray them. There's an early season, there's a mid-season, and there's a late season for both of those, and they time differently. Because it's when the bug is entering the apple, right? So you got to get before it, right? So there is to be organic. Now I'm just going to go on organic because I focus on that, right? There is a BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, which is it's a fungus that attacks the larva of the worms and gets them. So it's not a spray, it's not a chemical, it's a fungus that only attacks the worms that eat your apples.
So that's only in one life stage of the buck.
Correct. So it has
Which
to be
is okay.
not correct.
Which is okay.
Because I think that when novice gardeners
Right.
are planting, we've got all the advantages of having fruit trees and vegetables in the home, but they don't know how to treat for
Right.
them, and then they
Yes.
get
And these treatments are
discouraged.
specific.
Yeah.
And I'll just be the other guy. I'm never gonna do my own treatment. I own a
Which is
greenhouse. I got
First thing I was going to
do.
suggest.
I just I have a lawn guy and a
Yep.
tree guy,
Yep.
and he texts me in the
Yep.
spring and he texts me in the fall. He just texted me, "Hey, I've done an application. Turn off your sprinklers for the night." Okay, great. And so if you have somebody who's already doing your stuff, just say, "Hey, can you treat my fruit trees as
Yeah.
well?"
The reason for that, there's two reasons for this. Number one, they're going to time it properly. They
Yes.
know
Yeah.
March is the time to come out and do dorm oil.
Right.
You don't even have to think about it. They're
No,
just going to
gonna
show up and do it.
They're gonna do
Correct.
it.
The other thing is most of us do not have the sprayers to spray trees.
And
Correct.
it's
Trees
it's a
are not, you're not going to
That's
pump
right.
up a
That's
Roundup
right.
sprayer and do a tree.
Well, and I have a half acre.
Yes,
Like it
right.
cost me $300 to do my trees and my lawn in the fall, and it cost me $300 in the spring. If you can shit out a couple $100,
Right.
do it. If you can't, that's when you need to start looking into other options.
Well, listen, and to be fair, for those of us who are focusing on these fruits, you're gonna save more than $300 at the
Oh
grocery
my
store if you
God.
spend this money, because instead of getting 40% of your apples, you're gonna get 80% of your apples, right? Instead of
Correct.
throwing them away. So it sounds like a lot of money, but if you look at it as a grocery bill, you're basically just pre-buying your next year's apples, peaches, plums, whatever fruits
If
that
you
you
can.
have.
So
If you
for the-
can, that's right. If you can't,
Like right now, I'm starting to like go, holy cannoli, I have so many peaches. I need to get some jars and I need to get organized
Yep.
and I need to get this done.
Yep.
So
and then
you have
suddenly I've got peaches all year because I did my due
Yes.
diligence.
you have your guy coming out.
Mhm.
Are there, for those that want to go organic,
yes.
are these companies practicing organic practices when
I
they
will-
are spraying and things like that?
I have no idea.
But I'll say this.
But organic is not that important to me.
And two of the sprays that we do that's just what you do that time. Dormant oil.
Yeah.
Dormant oil is an
Okay.
organic product, but that's across the board. That's what
Right.
everybody sprays fruit trees with
Right.
early in the season. So
Right.
that's an organic product that everybody uses. So 2 out of the 3, they're probably going to do within an organic program, even without trying. There is a
Yes.
third time of the year.
There is
And
true.
I'll give you one more. Never spray. I never spray.
I don't
Here's what
either.
happens. Every 2 or 3 years, I lose a bunch of peaches.
Mm.
And every couple of years, I have some shitty apples. To be fair, in my opinion, I'm fine if the bugs get half of the fruit and I get the other half. I'm okay with that number, honest to God. And to be fair, that's what you're trying to do with pesticides. You're
Right.
managing the
You're right.
threshold of cost to you, right? So if you're okay only getting half, and to be fair, you're buried in peaches right now. If you only got half of them,
Yep.
I'd
you
be
probably
thrilled.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
crying.
And
I'm
I'd still feel like I had too much work to do.
yes.
Yeah. I'm just
Yes.
saying that it's not 1970s anymore.
No.
Right.
And
when I
everything's
grew up,
readily available
and
to you in the
everybody
store.
is wanting to be
A little better.
Yeah, a little
Yes.
better at taking
Yes.
care of the environment. That's
Well, and on the flip side of that, I mean, there's a lot of things that are organic that are incredibly toxic.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
when you
That's
go
not a
down the
be-all.
conversation of organic, I know that I poo-poo it a little bit. So please know, as a subscriber or viewer to our podcast, like I only poo-poo it because we are not allowed to be certified organic at Moss greenhouses, because the second I add, now definition of organic is a carbon-based life form. This is a burr in my ass. So I'm just going to pick this scab. Okay. USDA and FDA, all that nonsense, all those government entities. The second you add sulfuric acid, and we buy organic sulfuric acid, the second you add acid to your water, you are immediately disqualified.
right.
Well,
Every
right.
other piece of our process could be organic. And when you look at fruit and any kind of our food crops, we almost treat all organic
yes, we
on
do.
our farm. But I can't tote that. I can't prescribe that. I can't advertise that
It gets even worse.
because
Right.
You probably couldn't sell pesticides in retail. You can't spray Roundup at any ground on your farm anywhere. So we'd
Anywhere.
have to figure out how to keep
Yeah.
kochia and puncture vine on it. Like it gets worse
Oh,
and
it gets
worse and
worse.
worse. It's
So basically,
Yeah.
when you say organic, I think of it as a bad word. Now, that's only because the burden it causes us as an entity in this
Right.
industry.
Well, I think everybody will agree the term organic is thrown around loosely.
Yes.
There's
Well, and then you can
no,
triple the
know,
price on
yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
Well, that guy got thrown
Yeah.
in jail for he sold wheat for years and years and years. He'd just go buy your wheat field and then label it organic and,
Yeah.
and charge triple, right? And they finally busted his ass.
Oh,
But
nice.
Again, if they'll lie to you about a $4 gallon of milk, they'll damn sure lie to you about a $12 gallon of milk.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
Let's
organic's a buzzword to
Let's
make more
put
money.
2 strings of asparagus in the water and charge
Uh-huh.
$7. Thank you, Whole
Yes.
Foods. Like,
Cucumber water.
I love my Whole Foods, but and
Yes.
I eat a lot of organic. I really do. I just, as far as growing, I grow as naturally and sustainable as possible.
Right.
If I have a problem that is going to take me to the next level and need a chemical, okay, is it a food product? Is it something I'm eating? If it's not something I'm eating, grab the chemical.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
do it.
Exactly.
But if it's something I'm eating, I'm going to treat it completely differently. So everything that I'm treating, though, we're grabbing from here, and it is organic.
Right.
I mean,
And-
the
and
worst thing
people
I
think-
did was Technigrow, and I think that's organic.
It is just fertilizer, and that's fertilizer.
It's
People think
fertilizer.
organic means no spray. That's
Right.
completely wrong.
That's not true.
We have
Yeah.
I'll show you the catalog of all of the products, the pesticides that are listed for
As
organic
organic.
production.
Yeah.
100%. So when people say organic, that's not a non-spray. The 3 fruit tree sprays are a clay that covers the fruit to stop the thing getting in, the BT, which is the fungus that attacks the worm, and the dormant oil. No pesticides.
Which
That's
dormant
all
oil- yeah,
dormant oil
it's-
just covers the tree before the fruit sprouts and stops the bug from getting
Getting
into the
into the-
wood,
yep.
Right.
which he'll eat your fruit later, right?
Which is exactly how you deal with an aphid on a rose.
Right.
You put horticulture oil on
Yep.
it, which you can also take
Soap and water.
and water
Yep.
and some olive oil, put it in a spray can, and all it does is suffocate the bug.
Yep.
I mean, so we're giving you as many organic. I mean, it seems really complicated because
But it doesn't have to be.
you have a real job, like you're an accountant or you run a store or you freaking pack groceries for a living. I don't care. This gets complicated when you step outside of your box.
Long
So,
story short,
We want to make this
go
easy.
out and plant a shrub, a tree, a vine, whatever. Don't let the terminology
Scare you.
organic
Yeah,
or
don't
anything like
don't let
that.
us scare you.
And let's talk about fall, best time of the year to plant perennials.
Absolutely.
Yes,
There's
it
3
is.
seasons of root growth before the summer heat. So this is a marvelous time to go buy your fruit trees. This is a marvelous time to go find some raspberry bushes.
Yeah.
It's a great time to
And
plant
They're
perennials.
discounted right now.
Yes, they are. Yeah, 100%
And
they are.
I mean, a couple people were telling them what the topics were for the podcast we were filming today, and they're like, "Oh, it's too bad the store's not open." What we're going to tell you: go
Yeah,
see your
Windsor's
local garden
Nursery,
center.
yes.
Go see Windsor's.
to
Go see
Windsor's.
Webb. Go
Yep.
see Southern Idaho Landscape Center. Go
D&D
visit.
Supplies got
Go-
stuff
yeah,
for sale.
go visit.
Ace Hardware.
And they've got them discounted. They don't want to hold on
Yep.
to them. Go get some
And
stuff.
it's a marvelous, everything we're talking about today is a perennial, right? All the food crops we're
Yep.
talking about are perennials.
Everything.
It's a great time to do it. Don't be scared of the spray and not spray. I have never sprayed my garden. And we'll talk about that in a minute because there's a way to plant to hedge your bet, right? And by that, you don't plant one variety of apple. Well, first of all, you need more than one apple to do the pollination.
Okay,
Right,
so
but-
let's
right.
let's talk
But
about
we'll talk about
pollinators.
that.
Okay, so if you have, I went to buy a fruit tree.
Okay.
At Windsor's because we don't sell fruit trees.
Right,
So I went to visit
right.
Jamie and team, and so I walked in and said, "All right, do I need 2 of any of these?" And they said, "No, you just need a tree within 1 square mile of your tree that is also an apple tree, also a peach tree, also a cherry tree, because those
Right.
are the 3 trees I bought."
Peach doesn't need cross pollination, but cherry and apple do.
Correct. I didn't. I did.
Peach
I
does
say
not.
apple?
You said peach.
Oh, okay. So
apple
I did,
definitely
I
does.
did
Cherry
peach,
definitely does.
I did
Peach
peach,
does- yeah, peach does not.
nectarine, and cherry.
Okay, so nectarine does
Nectarine
not,
does
and
not.
peach does not.
Cherry,
Cherry
does.
Cherry absolutely does. and
Apple does.
Apple absolutely does.
Okay, so
And a couple
I
of
live in
different
the
nuts.
center twin
Right.
cakewalk.
You probably
I'm
got
fine.
plenty. Probably.
Totally fine.
Yep.
But I can get peaches and nectarines. I have to fight the squirrels and the birds for the cherries. So I went to
Yeah.
Jamie and said, "How do I combat this?" She goes, "A net,
Mhm.
physical barrier."
Yes.
I was like, "All right, fair.
There's a
that sucks."
Couple other
But-
ideas. Hanging CDs from the tree helps.
I've
The
done
actual
that. I've
CDs
done
to
that,
keep like them
and
off your tomatoes and
I've
whatnot.
kept
But
them
what
off
if
my tomatoes
CDs come
that way.
back again?
They're-
Then
Dave,
we'll come
Dave,
steal off your tree.
Dave, they're not coming back.
Oh, Dave still has 8 tracks
Dave-
waiting for
Dave-
Merle Haggard to come back.
I was on a road trip with Dave. I can't even remember where we were. And we ended up on a Sirius channel, and it was like
A
the top 40
countdown
hits
from
for like
last
40
60
years.
years. Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah,
this is what he was so
Dave
happy.
did.
I was not even willing to be like, I'm going to fight you on this. I was
Jennifer
like,
said, I'm driving next time.
Yeah. No, I think I said that after you took me to Del Taco, and I couldn't. Yeah, that was bad.
So
Okay.
pollinators is very important.
Pollinators is important.
And
so if you live in the middle of the country, you
Yes.
might have to buy in pairs.
And to be fair,
You might.
I would never count on my neighbors, and I'll tell you why. It depends on what is this a hobby for you? Then who really cares,
Yeah.
right? If you're
Yeah.
planning on eating off of this, spend the extra $29 and get that other cherry tree. Don't rely on your neighbors.
Yeah.
What happens in our environment is if the wind blows the same direction for a period, and you know it, it'll come in the
Yeah.
spring and it'll blow for
Right.
6 weeks straight
In
from the west
same
to
way.
in the same
And
way.
then the trees
Yeah.
this way.
Right.
You're
And
done.
so
Yeah.
if your pollinator tree is on
It's
the
getting that-
downwind side of you, you're not getting
You're
any cherries that year.
Right.
So PJ's opinion on that is buy the pollinator. It's one more tree. It actually helps you to, I mean, it's a little bit
Then-
more fruit, right?
There's also the next
Hedge your
thing.
bet.
Dwarf versus semi-dwarf
Yes.
versus full. So semi-dwarf will
Semi-dwarf.
fruit. Well, no, a dwarf will fruit in the first 3 to 5 years. Semi-dwarf's 5 to 7, and then a real fruit
No.
tree is 10 to 12,
Nope,
isn't it?
nope, absolutely not.
Am
Not
I
even
wrong?
close. No,
Okay.
yes, way wrong.
Help me.
So the sizes have
See,
less to do with it.
I learned things
Yeah, yeah.
today too.
The sizes have less to do with it than the variety of stuff.
Well,
so
that's what I'm talking
apple,
about.
well, no, but it's not a size. It's an apple tree will fruit on year 2, and you get hardcore fruit year 3. Peach tree fruits on
But
year.
it has to do with dwarves and
no,
semi-dwarfs
well,
too.
no, not.
Semi-dwarves and real fruit and full fruit.
I feel like it's still variety
I'm
specific.
saying it wrong.
Still variety specific.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
Talk to your garden center where you're buying them.
Exactly.
That's what you need to do.
Or do your research. Most of the places that are sell you these that are quality people will not just sell you a single cherry tree. They're going to
Right,
stop
they're
and go,
gonna tell
hey,
you, yeah.
this tree needs a pollinator. And it's even worse than that, because if you have an early season cherry tree, you need an early season pollinator.
Yes,
Because
you
if
do.
you plant an early cherry and a late cherry, they don't pollinate.
They're not going to help each other.
Exactly. So it's really important if you're going to invest in trees, and
Lean-
it's an investment because it's
Lean
a
on
lot of
your
money.
garden center.
Lean on the garden.
Lean on the
Do
garden
some
center.
research. Take a little extra time to make sure if you need. So, for instance, I planted 3 peach trees, an early, a mid, and a late. So all of my peaches don't come the same goddamn time. You're buried on one tree. I planted 3.
It's in Alberta.
Okay, so mine, I
I'm
literally have a
living in
peach tree
it.
that comes now. I
I'm
got a
living
peach
in
tree
it.
that comes in 3 weeks, and I got one that comes in the middle of
So
October.
when I run out, I'm going to pester you.
Yes, I have some. And my neighbors are earlier. So when I planted this food forest, I did that on purpose. So same thing with the apples. I have an early apple. I have a mid apple. I have a late, so that you don't get buried in the fruit. Nothing worse than having a counter full of fruit you're
Yep.
too busy to work on.
Yep.
It's just rotting. The flies start in your house. You're like, okay, I'm mad at myself now. I spent
Yeah.
all this
Yep.
money and now all the fruit is going to waste.
Yeah.
So more research. It takes a little more time. Don't buy 3 peach
And-
trees that
Well,
all
and-
fruit
and-
early.
And I think at the same point, don't buy a tree with the fruit you're not going to eat.
All
well,
the
I
above.
think I might want that.
My family's
And then it
so
all-
mad. I planted Italian prunes. Nobody eats them. Nobody likes them. My wife's like, chop it down, chop it down.
What
You're
is it? It's a
Italian prune.
prune.
Prune is so all prunes are plums, but not all prunes are plums.
Oh,
Italian
yeah.
plum is a plum with very little
I
juice.
just- Did you see my head
Yeah.
bobbing? Is there a vein? God, it's like when a bride, I'm a pick for a second.
Yeah.
A bride said, I have periwinkle blue. It's like, divorce that idea real quick. Shades of blue, you want them lighter.
So, yeah,
Okay,
no,
great.
Things
Like
that you
you
like.
said.
Things that you like.
Yeah.
You know that you're going to eat.
Yeah.
And think about this.
Plant things you're going to eat.
I specifically didn't plant a pear tree because they produce so much fruit you will never.
Well,
Ever
I
in
am-
your life,
I am
people.
so
pear-
excited. I've got a pear tree.
Oh, my
It's year 3 and it's got fruit on it now. And I'm
is
like,
it growing straight up like this?
yes, it's
So there's something about pear trees that's different. And I learned this when I was doing the Master Gardener program. They have more auxin in their branches.
hormones,
And
right?
so they go straight up reaching for the sun way more than any other fruit tree.
And guess what's
Yeah.
bad on fruit trees? Stuff that grows straight up.
Because you
It-
can't get to it.
100%. Which
You
is
still
why
have to be able to pick the
dwarf and
SOV.
semi-dwarf, the only 2 I would ever suggest for fruit
Ditto.
trees ever.
yeah, and,
And go heavily on
trim-
dwarf.
and mine's a
trims, you
box
can get
pear,
to
so
it.
I don't
Well,
know
we're
anything
gonna talk about that
it, but
next.
trims, you can get to it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about, let's finish the fruit trees and
Yeah.
then go to berries so we don't go
Okay.
too overtime.
So fruit trees. So when she said we were doing this topic, I was super excited because I went to all this effort and I did my research. I planted on these trees.
Yep.
And then the first year I went out and absolutely trimmed opposite of what I should have. So and guess what? Every tree breaks now every year as soon as they get loaded with fruit. So I'll explain this. The strongest joint on a tree is a 90-degree joint.
Okay.
So
Okay.
for fruit trees specifically, you eliminate every single Y branching. You want 90-degree. In fact, when you're done trimming the first or second year fruit trees, it should look like a shitty ladder.
Hmm.
You want a few branches They need to be far apart spaced, and everything needs to be a 90-degree angle because the strong wood is 90
Well,
degrees.
maybe when all those peaches come off the branches, they will be at 90 degrees.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go pick up from
PJ went exact opposite. PJ thought he knew what he was doing. So instead of doing the research on the
You
pruning,
just clip.
PJ went out and pruned for
Yeah.
V shapes. Because PJ thought that's
Well,
what you know.
that's
what happens?
what we're taught, though.
Well,
That's
So what happens on a V shape? As soon as that branch gets fruit, it just peels off from
Yep.
the tree.
Yep.
Yep.
There's
That's-
no strength in that joint whatsoever.
No.
So every tree I pruned for these V shapes, and now as soon as I get tree laden with fruit, it just peels off, or the wind blows and my branches fall off.
thus a lot of the trees that go lateral when they're putting them on the
Yeah.
trellises.
So
and
correct. Here's the big thing to remember with fruit trees: if they're not ugly, you didn't prune it right.
That's
Everybody
a truth.
trims
That's
looking for
a
pretty,
truth.
and fruit trees, things that feed you, you should trim to feed you. Who cares what it looks like? Fruit trees should be ugly. So number one rule of trees: you never top a tree. Anybody suggests you top a
ever,
tree,
ever.
throw them off your property
And they're not
Right
an
now.
arborist and fire them.
Immediately. The exception
do
of
it.
that, fruit trees. I bought a pole saw this year so I could top my fruit trees.
That
Because
tree-
guess
yeah,
what?
Fruit
An
trees
apple
are
tree that's
different.
15 feet in the air is doing you zero good.
Right.
All you're doing is feeding birds, right? So to trim a fruit tree, you trim it to where you can pick the branches yourself, or that is a waste of food,
Yep.
right? So
That's true.
topping trees, never, unless you're talking about fruit. And fruit trees should be ugly. Again,
Yeah.
literally, you need to keep
They
that in
are-
your head.
Well, it's
ugly.
like tomatoes.
That's right.
Heirlooms are awful, hideous plants, and they're the best tasting tomatoes.
And
you
guess
ever
what?
had.
If you trim them for maximum fruit, there's not a leaf within 2 feet of the ground.
Yep.
You eliminate all green. Literally, it's a couple of ugly branches with giant fruit.
Yeah.
It's the ugliest plant you ever saw. It'll give you more tomatoes for sauce than you can ever
Yeah,
deal with.
I didn't trim my tomatoes soon enough. I'm
Right. So all
living
the
in
suckers
leaves.
are stealing energy from that. Like, but again, fruit
I'm
is
living in leaves.
feeding you stuff
It's okay.
should be ugly. And
I'm gonna,
almost
I'm
that's
gonna go thin them
everything.
out.
Yes.
It's- I still have 6 weeks of tomato harvest as long as we don't snow before October 1.
Well, see, this time of year, and I know we're moving fruit, but I go chop every single new flower off of a tomato tree because they'll never bear fruit before the season ends.
Yeah.
So I go start cutting anything off. If I got fruits like this, I was chopping them off. It'll
Okay.
never come to fruition before
Right.
it gets cold.
Right.
Right. So this time of year, I go remove everything that doesn't
Okay.
already have a decent sized fruit on it
Okay.
because it's never going to get there.
All right. So,
So,
let's go
what
to berries.
happens, in the
fruit
early
berries.
spring, a lot of folks will buy raspberries, blackberry plants, and
Okay.
things like that, and they'll put them in the ground. Now, are blackberries and raspberries the same?
Absolutely not.
No.
That's right.
But I will tell
Okay.
you,
They are not.
There's a
I'm gonna
couple
pick
things
a
I'm
scab
Do
for Dave. Blueberries don't work in Southern Idaho. Move on.
Don't do it. So,
or you're gonna buy them every year.
Every year.
well,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it.
Yep.
Blueberries
It
grow in
has to
alkaline
do-
soil.
Yeah.
It has to do
Yep.
with the pH in our soil.
That's
We have
exactly right.
too
That's right.
low.
We have too high
We
a
have
pH.
too high a pH.
and
They need a
blueberries-
low
that's exactly
pH.
right.
There we go.
The question
Saying
is,
it right way.
Yeah, but you're
when
right.
is the best time to cut back your blackberry and
Okay.
your
So,
raspberry?
okay.
I figured this
plants?
out.
And
I had to
well,
write it down.
It's variety specific.
And here's the deal. There's both raspberries and blackberries.
Mhm.
We either grow first year or second year.
That's
Okay.
exactly right.
So first year is called a primal cane.
Right.
The second year is a floricane.
Yep.
All right. Your primal canes are going to grow on the ends. Now, we here at Moss's, we sell
Raspberries.
raspberries, and they're heritage.
Heritage.
Okay.
Heritage.
They're
Second
they're
year,
considered
I'm pretty
they're
sure.
considered a everbearing.
Yep.
They will bloom the first year.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So
Now,
they said fruit on
And
new
this
wood.
is the time. I've got 3 heritage bushes right now at the house, and I have got handfuls of
Loaded.
berries,
Mhm.
and they're great. Okay. Another good one, we don't sell it. We have in the past is fall gold.
Oh, I have fall gold
Ooh,
in my
okay.
yard
Ooh.
too.
And
Boy, they're
fall
good.
gold
I
is
love
also
those.
an
They're so good.
everbearing
They are an everbearing.
primocane.
Yes, they are.
All right.
They are
Now,
everbearing. I get fruit on those till October.
the good
December.
thing
Oh.
about raspberries, what we have, of course, they're thornless.
The squirrels are pillaging
Is
my
that-
yard.
You can cut them all the way to the ground.
That's
Correct.
okay.
Okay.
So
First year wood. That's
all
exactly
the way
right.
to the ground.
All right,
and they
so-
will come back. Now, what you have to look at when they come back that following year is you have a lot of shoots coming off.
Mhm.
Okay.
yeah.
I had shoots coming off 3 feet away.
Oh, 3 feet.
So I
I'll
had-
say you 15
so I-
foot away.
Yeah.
They're
So
real good about that.
Just keep
Yeah,
mowing
be
those down, and
careful when
those
you
will do
plant
well.
raspberries.
Now, when I say that you can cut them back, that's fine. You don't have to cut them back. All right. You're going to have a mess the following season. When a primocane goes into the next season, it's called a floricane. And you will get growth as long as you didn't freeze it. And that's why we cut them back here. But if you didn't freeze that cane, you're going to get growth on the bottom part of your plant as well. But the best thing to do for raspberries, for everbearing primal canes, cut them back to the ground. Mow them, chop them, doesn't matter.
Okay,
But,
so
but you got to figure out what you got, because if you go and mow down second year wood fruiting
Absolutely.
plants, you will have no fruit this year, and you'll be bitching to Dave about cutting them down. So
Well,
it's variety specific.
And then if you're going to cut them back, all right, you can tell very easily if it's a floricane. All right, your primocane is going to be greenish canes. Okay,
it won't be woody.
Your second year after it's fruited, they only last 2 seasons.
Yep.
Okay, and then they die. It's going to be brown and hard.
In fact, they start dying the minute the fruit sets.
Absolutely.
Right, because I'll pick raspberries off as that cane's dying. So it starts dying as soon as the fruit's gone.
That's your
So-
raspberry. Your blackberry is much harder to control, but they still have primocane and floricanes. Your blackberries are going to get much taller. We're talking 4 to 5 foot.
Oh, they're so.
And when you
such
are
bullies.
cutting those back, you're cutting down 1 foot to 2 foot. And at that point, you got to really be on top of them.
So here's a couple of things to remember with berries.
All right, hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
Tammy told me that fall berries are the ones you cut to the ground.
Yes, that's your everbearing. That's your fall
No, those
berries.
are different.
No,
No,
that's-
there's fall berry.
primocane is
There's fall-bearing
everbearing,
berries, though.
fall bearing. Is same thing.
No, they're separate because it's like a Juneberry strawberry
Strawberry,
versus an everbearing strawberry. So there's 2 flushes with an everbearing,
There's no. There's actually
Three.
the flush is the whole season. It just keeps
Okay.
going. It never stops.
and then fall bearing is just one big flush.
Well, and fall berry, yes, correct. That's exactly right. So, for instance, my raspberries, the second year wood raspberries, they come hard and heavy
Yep.
in June and July, and then they're
Yep.
done for the
Yep.
season.
Yep.
The golden raspberries start giving me berries in June and July, but they continue all the way through until
Until
December.
the first frost.
and they
Until the
never
first
come
frost.
as a big crop.
I just need a clarification.
Here's the weird thing about berries. Every
So we're both right.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, fabulous.
Every berry we've talked about comes from blackberries. And if you
Yeah.
plant
Ah.
berries together, they will eventually all revert to blackberries.
Sure.
Because blackberry is the dominant
That's the
genes.
dominant gene. Yes.
So,
Ah.
and I say it because you said careful. You will never get rid of berries. If you plant them, they will never leave. It's just like mint. Be goddamn careful where you put it, because it's
But-
never getting rid of it.
I
Be-
planted both of these in my yard.
Never getting rid
Be
of it.
creative. I think that with your heritage, with your reddish fruit and your fall gold with the yellowish,
Right.
goldish color, blooming now, you know how gorgeous that would
No,
be in
it's
your
pretty.
backyard.
And actually, I planted raspberries expecting it to eventually revert. And I'm like, think it'll be fab, because the raspberries just keep, these things will put up volunteer plants 20
Absolutely.
feet away.
Yeah.
20 feet away in the tree in the middle of the yard. It will send a runner, and there'll be a raspberry plant pop up in the tree. So they're hardcore runners. You'll never get rid of them.
Just remember, if you don't take care of them, they're going to be a mess within 3
they will be
years. I mean,
invasive.
yeah, you're
They
going
will
to
be
be
invasive.
Yep.
Just don't be afraid of your pruners. At
Yeah,
the end of the season,
exactly.
it sounds like just cut them down.
The old lady who used to sell with me at the farmer's market in Jerome literally took her lawnmower to her
Right.
raspberries.
Right.
Literally would break on November, and she was out pushing her 19 craftsman mowing down her raspberries.
Once I get my
Because
first
hers were
frost,
first year wood.
once I get my first frost, I'll just cut
Yep.
everything back. That's
Yep. I go the other route. I tend to just chop out dead wood, and I don't trim. I don't prune. I don't
I
anything. I
planted
let them
mine
lay down, because
2 years
realistically,
ago,
if
so-
you really got right, you lay the canes down in the winter. In the springtime, you pick them back up and tie them to your trellis to keep them alive. I don't mess with any of that in Idaho. I let them do their thing. I get fruit every year.
And
Yeah.
if you want to be that advanced, they do have trellises. They recommend trellises
Correct.
to keep the branches separated out and
Right.
easier to
Keep your
do.
fruit from
So,
laying on the
yeah.
ground. But again, these
Yeah.
are things that are optional.
Yeah.
Right. To me, it's like spraying the fruit trees. It's
Yeah.
optional.
Yeah.
You can if you want. I personally have no problem not doing the extra maintenance,
Right.
because it helps. Some years I get a big crop, some years I get a no crop. And that balance helps me.
I can tell you though, being able to pick the fresh fruit when I'm out, just kind of working in the yard and grab a handful.
Garden
Yeah. Oh man.
Garden
Yeah.
The yellow raspberries you're talking about, the goldens,
Yep.
they almost never make it out. They're so sweet and so delicious. They never make it in the house.
Yeah.
They just get eaten
Right.
out in the garden. It's amazing. Really it is.
So this is good stuff. Plant the berries. They're easy to take care of. Hi,
Jennifer-
Zach.
Jennifer's gotten a little
Yeah,
more masculine.
Hi.
Anna, do you have any fruit trees at your house?
No, I don't have bushes. I don't have anything.
Well,
I have grass that someone else pays
so
someone else to
you
cut,
do
and that's it.
you do video productions for Moss greenhouses,
I do.
and you have access to plants and berries and
My girlfriend worked here, and we don't have any plants.
We're going to change that
yeah,
next year.
yeah, exactly.
We're-
So it's-
Container gardening is a beautiful thing. One of the things that berries work amazing at, and mint, is they're wonderful container garden plants because it won't be invasive in your yard. If you just put one of our big whiskey barrel, you put a whiskey barrel on your back porch with raspberries, you'll be picking raspberries every time you go in the backyard all season.
That would be my first backyard decoration.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's how we turn bachelors into gardeners.
There
One
you
little
go.
pot at a time. And I'm
That's
not being a jerk.
right.
You plant something you really like. If you really like raspberries, that's where you start, right? Let's not start with a garlic that you hate. Right. Let's start with something you dig. And if it's raspberries, one little pot, you'll have raspberries all year. You'll really enjoy yourself. And that will turn into, I'll try tomatoes, or, I'll try something else.
There you go.
Exactly. And while we're on the fall planting, okay, don't forget fruit trees, berries. All right. Bulbs are in season as well.
Yes.
If you want your spring bulbs, grape hyacinths, daffodils,
Fall's a marvelous
ranunculus,
time to plant.
primrose, all of this stuff here that you can get in bulb state. Plant them now so that you have that product for next spring.
Garlic, garlic
Allium.
in this area, plants at Halloween. The cool part about fall gardening is there's no irrigation requirements. You don't have to worry about sprinkling. You're not trying to keep things alive after you planted it. Typical fall gardening, bulbs, for instance, they just dig themselves in the ground and hang out. They don't need to be watered. They don't need to be fertilized. They don't need to be tended. You can kind of just plant and forget, which is unusual because in the spring you plant and then you immediately run out with a hose and try to keep things alive. Fall gardening is so much less stressful.
And the bulbs will multiply. I mean, it's always good to take out, but if you don't, they'll keep going.
Yes.
All right.
So
I've got a 5-gallon container right now of grape hyacinths that I have taken out of my front yard planter. I don't know how long they've been there, but I just kept pulling and pulling and pulling.
And are you going to just dry them out and plant them, you think?
Yeah,
or you don't have them decided?
maybe I'll bring them here and people can have them too. So
Nice. What were you going to ask? You had a question.
So speaking of tips, we've got about a minute left.
Okay.
I'm the producer, by the way, in
Yeah.
case you're
By
wondering.
the way.
Jen had to go run and take care of some dogs real quick. I'll give you each both one tip that you would give to wrap up here. We got about a minute left. So
Okay.
a tip for what is
We're talking about fruit production in general here, right?
Yeah.
I think I said it earlier. If you're going to plant a berry plant or a fruit tree, make sure it's something that you're going to like, because that is going to be the most important satisfaction. I grew something that I'm going to eat and take care of. So
I've heard really good things about Italian prunes.
Italian prunes are
marvelous.
marvelous. I'll bring you a giant box of them. Don't you worry, brother. I got plenty. You know what people find this to be scary, and it takes a little due diligence. You got to go do your research. But one of the things I find so exciting about a big garden, and we're talking about it, fruit trees is covered from everything comes in a stage. It doesn't all come at once. It almost times out your So June, I get strawberries. Got to go to work doing strawberries. About the time you're really tired of strawberries, the cherries are ready. You go pick the cherries. Soon as the cherries are done, the raspberries are ready. So you literally just kind of work in your garden all season long, harvesting one thing at a time, which helps. You just don't get crushed under the weight of everything at once.
Right.
So if your family loves peaches and they love nectarines and they love apples, plant a food forest, man. Do it. You'll enjoy yourself. You'll have fun. It is a lot of work. I said we went full Amish is what I told people, because all of a sudden we're city people, right? And all of a sudden you're canning and you're drying and you're freezing. But man, does it make you feel good when you go in a closet in December, it's cold, and you pull out a jar of something that you put away. One, it's the best food you can possibly give your family. Like, what is better than something you grew, produced, cleaned? God, it makes you feel good. So it's more work, but the payoff for that is you're saving money from the grocery store. You will spend less at Albertsons if you're growing your own fruit. Simple as that, right? A little more work, but it's worth it.
All right. Sounds good to me. That sounds like a good stopping point. So
I think so too.
Appreciate everyone for listening. I'll do the wrap up today. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment on whatever platform you're listening on. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, Google. Pick your poison, really, for wherever it is. YouTube, Facebook. If you're on Facebook, make sure to like and comment. That helps spread it to other people, and just tell your friends. It's going to be on the Moss website soon.
Right?
Yeah.
Should be able to follow a link.
Yep. It'll be right there at the top that you can click right there and see the latest episode. And we're up to, this is the 31st episode.
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay.
I believe.
Like
Yeah.
professional.
Very cool. Go out
Yeah.
and grow something this fall, folks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Live life in full color.
Because plain is pretty boring.
Pretty boring. That's right.
I
Took
did
three
it.
of us, but I'm almost up to
Yeah,
10.
we got it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.